seas make for good seamanship, a top CFO once told me when I was working in a senior change management HR role in Africa. Being in lockdown in the Middle East during the COVID-19 pandemic has given me some time to reflect on my role as an HR leader, and these words resonated with me. My story may not be very different to many other HR leaders, but I wanted to share my experience and insights in order to make my small contribution to the thought leadership that is currently being shared on social media by my fellow HR professionals. In one's normal role as an HR leader, one learns to manage disruptive change and the ambiguity that accompanies it. But nothing in my extensive experience prepared me to lead a regional team in the Middle East during the COVID-19 global pandemic, an event that may be a 1 in a 100-year event. But upon further reflection, this wasn't entirely true. Having worked extensively in Africa before coming to the Middle East, where things don't always run as smoothly as they do in more mature markets, I recall a fabulous mentor that was an expert in resilience, but resilience from a psychological perspective. Recently, I've seen a lot of online webinars that focus more on corporate resilience as it relates to IT security. This resilience, however, is different. At the time, my mentor had been appointed to work in trauma counseling as a large retail bank was needing to deal with a spate of armed robberies at the bank's branches. Let me be very clear, I'm not an academic, but rather a highly experienced and hands-on HR practitioner. And in summary, my takeaway from these resilience workshops is to say that resilience is about getting from surviving to thriving. And this seemed a very useful concept at this point in time. So I made a conscious decision in starting to use my past experience with resilience in order to lead myself, as well as lead the HR team and the learning and development teams in the regions. I also incorporated the concept of Ubuntu, the African humanism philosophy, whose premise is, I am because you are, and you are because I am. It then dawned on me that the concept of emotional intelligence may also come in handy in formulating a more complete and robust approach with which to engage more effectively with the remote HR teams when limited to using only online meetings and calls, as well as the usual email communication channels. I want to mention at this point that emotional intelligence assessments, and the Baron EQI assessment in particular, in which I'm certified, tests for some of the following key leadership dimensions that focus on assessing an individual's ability to deal with stress and ambiguity, something that was plentiful in the COVID-19 lockdown and curfew scenario. So, the following are some of those key dimensions: reality checking, empathy, optimism, happiness, and bounce back ability. I have listed these in no particular order of importance. Whenever I was evaluating senior EQI leadership assessments or involved in setting promotion criteria for future leaders, these 5 dimensions seemed key in increasing the likelihood of success in one's role as a leader. So I tried to keep these top of mind in all of my interactions. My point of departure in crafting my approach to engaging and leading the regional HR teams was an invaluable lesson that I learned while working for a world-renowned US clinic in the Middle East. Their chief nursing officer had a mantra about the importance of patient care. Who will care for the caregivers? In other words, their nursing staff. The lesson was that only through caring for the nursing staff could they start to create and embed a culture of patient-centric care. So I decided to adopt this approach by prioritizing the care of the HR team. It was important that the HR team were treated like people first and HR professionals second, in order to enable them to care for the employees in their respective regions. The process steps I took were as follows. The HR team meetings provided a safe space, free from judgment, and team members participated with total confidence that what was shared during the morning huddle would remain confidential to the daily huddles. This was an unspoken rule during the morning huddles. Key to the morning huddles was the opening check-in process, whereby all team members reported in on how they and their families were doing. Once this was done, the meeting moved on to more business-focused discussions. It was a time in which they could all share their own concerns and ask questions or share funny stories or the latest updates on the evolving situation. Laughter was strongly encouraged at all times, and not laughing at a colleague, but laughing with a colleague. My role was to ensure that I myself, when I was unsure or feeling unsettled, that I admitted it to the team so that they could see that I was leading with authenticity. And I acknowledged that I had my own struggles with a brother in northern Italy in the red zone and being separated from my husband who was out of the country. Early on in our morning huddles, we decided as a group that no one was going to rescue us from this situation, and it was going to be up to each one of us to support the team in HR in order to support the HR function as a whole, in order for us to support the organization. The other unspoken rule was that we were not going to allow a victim mentality or victim language to creep into our meetings. And so that seemed to help with the team's morale and ability to deal with the difficult situation. This was done in a hope that they would feel more resilient when they were dealing with employees who were unsure and upset about the uncertainty of the COVID-19 lockdown and related curfew, as well as the isolation that working from home brought and the isolation for our largely expat workforce. To date, we have managed to deliver on business as usual deliverables with the challenges of working from home and also delivering some additional business continuity requirements, as well as introducing some fun online initiatives with all our regional employees to work on engagement. The full benefit of this approach may require further testing, but it does not seem to have done any harm, and the team's morale and ability to continue with their work, and the consensus seems that the HR team looks forward to the daily huddles that have not at any point become a pity party or a zone of doom. That's my story for now, and I trust that you have found some value in it. Take care, stay safe, wherever you are, and thank you for your kind attention.